East. We're joined by Jonathan Tobin. He's an editor-in-chief at the Jewish News Syndicate. Thank you so much for being with us here on Weekend Debrief. We've got a lot to discuss. I want to begin with Israeli Defense Minister Gallant's visit to the state. It comes at a very pivotal point for Israel. The war in Gaza continuing to push forward while this second front threatens to open up on the northern border with Hezbollah. What is the Israeli delegation looking to accomplish while in the United States on this trip?
It's very clear. They want the slowdown, the slow walking of U.S. arms supply to Israel to stop. It's technically true that there is no cutoff of arms from the United States to Israel, but it's a bureaucratic process that can, at the will of any administration, any president, any administration, be slowed down to a very, very slow walk if they don't demand its expedition. Quite frankly, Ukraine is getting, the fast version of the arms supply from the United States. Right now, Israel's getting the slow version that's dangerous for Israel because it's still trying to eliminate Hamas in Gaza, its last strongholds, and it faces a deadly threat from Hamas that has already depopulated a strip of northern Israel, a threat that sooner or later has to be addressed.
Well, and the administration saying that the claims of slowing down weapons, not true, but we'll see if Israel, says things change in the days and weeks to come after this meeting. The Biden administration saying it also wants to de-escalate tensions. It wants to support Israel in the matter with Hezbollah to prevent an all-out war from unfolding there. What do you think needs to happen on that front next to truly de-escalate things on the northern border?
Well, it can't be a ceasefire like as it is now. Hezbollah has to stop firing on northern Israel. Hezbollah didn't join the war with Hamas after October 7th for the very good reason that Iran always holds Hezbollah, in reserve, because Hezbollah, it's not an independent force or an ally of Iran. It is a direct auxiliary Iran. It takes orders from Tehran. It's their fail-safe if there's ever an attack on Iran. But in order to sort of virtue signal or evil signal, if you will, its support for the Hamas terrorists, it's been firing on northern Israel. As many as 100,000 Israelis have been forced to flee their homes along the northern border, along with even more in southern Israel. There are at least 200,000 refugees, Jewish refugees, Israeli refugees right now in Israel who are living in the center of the country in hotels in Tel Aviv and other places in the center because they can't go home. It's not safe. Hezbollah has made it unsafe to live along the northern border. That has to stop. That can't go on. No matter who's the head of the government, we all know that Biden doesn't like Netanyahu. He'd like to unseat him if he could. But no matter who's in charge of Israel, that can't be allowed to stand. So the United States has to tell Iran, with whom this administration has been most concerned with appeasing, not getting into fights with, tell them to tell their auxiliaries in Lebanon, stand down, withdraw from close proximity to the border at the very least, and make it possible for Israelis to go back home. Otherwise, a war with Lebanon, war with Hezbollah, which controls Lebanon for all intents and purposes, is inevitable because no country could allow that to go on, just as no country could allow a terrorist attack like October 7th. Israel doesn't need to live by that kind of double standard. And the United States, which has, over the last few years, been very intent on sort of puffing up Hezbollah, preventing Israel from getting into, from standing its ground with Hezbollah because they wanted to make it smooth relations with Iran because they were for a long time trying to get back into the dangerous Iran nuclear deal. Their main concern is stopping Israel from doing something about the crisis on its northern border. They've got to switch tack and start doing something to make northern Israel safe for people to go home. Otherwise, there's got to be something to happen, and it will be an all-out conflict that is very dangerous for Israel. Hezbollah is more dangerous than Hamas, with far more missiles, could really endanger much of Israel. But Israel can't allow part of its country to essentially be depopulated. And the United States, if it's going to act like an ally, rather than sort of an imperial overlord over Israel trying to maneuver with various parts of the opposition to Netanyahu. It should support Israel's efforts to make northern Israel safe.
At this point, do you see it being a reality that the Biden administration take a more hardline stance toward Iran, either with words, sanction, or otherwise? Do you, while that's something that might help Israel, do you see that being a reality that could come to light, even especially as we're looking in an election year here?
Yeah, well, it's a choice, quite frankly, of Biden. By relaxing sanctions, unfreezing funds, Biden has wound up sending billions of dollars to Iran, which money is fungible. Iran is the world's leading state sponsor of terror. That has endangered the broader Middle East, which is why much of the Arab world is far more, is basically afraid of Iran and worried that the United States has sort of left them defenseless. That's why many in the Arab world look to Israel as an ally. It's a choice. Biden has been worried about the intersectional left wing of his party, which is why he goes back and forth between support for Israel and criticism of Israel. There is no constituency in the United States that I know of that is pro-Iran. That would be a popular thing. That would be good politics as well as good policy for him to start getting tough with Iran and making it clear they've got to tell their Hezbollah henchmen to stop firing into northern Israel, withdraw from the border, remove the threat of war. Iran can do that, but only if the West, and principally the United States, sends them the message that they will support Israel in any fight to make its country safe.
Certainly something that Biden has seen wavering of support from voters when it comes to dealing with this conflict. Be interesting to watch how this develops. Jonathan Tobin, editor-in-chief at the Jewish News Syndicate, thank you for your time.
Thank you.